Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, Hut, and we're back here to talk about the MLB draft, or mock draft, really. On July 9th, I think at 8 p.m., they're going to have the real draft. What's interesting about this year is that they have incorporated a lottery, meaning that teams just can't necessarily tank and then hope to get the number one pick. You actually have to have your name put into like a selection, and you get picked out of a lottery, which is probably better for Major League Baseball at this point. And it is it can give a team that maybe have the 10th worst record, maybe have the ability to get the best player in that year's draft. Now, this year's draft is considered to be a very strong prep draft, and that high school players are considered to be much stronger than in past years. This is not considered to be a draft to have strong pitchers in it. We have a lot of top pitchers, but the top pitchers even aren't that big. There's no generational pitchers in this draft, as far as we know. There could be somebody at the back end of the draft. That could be somebody, but you'll see a lot of guys in here that'll be good starters, but whether they are Hall of Famers, I highly doubt it. Or as you know, uh, the draft is now 20 rounds. It used to go like rounds and rounds and rounds of players used to be picked. You know that Mike Piazza went 62nd in the 1988 draft. Future Hall of Famer, was taken on favor for Tommy Lasorda from the Dodgers. And as you know, if you're a big fan of the Mets as well, Keith Hernandez was taken, I guess, 39th in the 1971 draft by the Cardinals. And he was taken so low because there was talk that he was going to go to college, and he didn't go to college to be a quarterback. But so there's only 20 rounds. So we're going to get into this momentarily. So please, of course, in the meanwhile, subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2. This channel is doing really well. I'm very happy. This channel will be getting to 1,000 subs before we know it. I'm very pleased with the way this has gone. I'm happy that you're willing to watch me on this channel. Let's talk about things other than the New York Mets. And I love talking about young players, and I love going through the draft. That's very, I find that very enjoyable. So we have mock drafts. Here we have MLB.com. They post a mock draft, and I've been doing, and this is the third installment of the mock drafts that I've been posting. There should be about 5 more drafts between now and July 9th, if not more. Try to find as many mock drafts as I can go through. And this is a mock draft from Jim Callis. It's not Jonathan Mayo. It's Jim Callis. He writes this: the consensus top 5 prospects remain the same. Louisiana State outfielder Dylan Cruz, the draft's best position prospect since Adley Rutschman in 2019, and teammate Paul Skeens is his best pitching prospect since Steven Strasburg in 2009. Florida outfielder Wyatt Langford isn't far behind Cruz and has posted better numbers this spring, while high school outfielders Walker Jenkins and Max Clark would be favored to go number 1 overall in many years. Again, I would mention that the draft is considered to be a very good overall prep draft, which means it's a high school draft. But the top talent is mostly as college players, and there's not a lot in terms of. It's not a very deep draft with the pitchers. Now, at number 1, the Pirates will select Dylan Cruz in outfield. That seems to be the consensus. 99 out of 100 times, it seems like the Pirates are going to take Dylan Cruz at number 1. And obviously, he's an outfielder from Louisiana State. Though Cruz slumped some in May, he's still hitting .420, and the majority of teams believe he's the top player available. If the Pirates do look to save money to spread around to other picks, the most likely option and the biggest discount would come from Clark, with Langford the other possibility. Now, the Pirates got this number 1 pick because of through the lottery. In the past, they've had number 1 picks, and they have because they were a bad team, they had the worst record. But they got this pick because they won the lottery. And their team seems to be coming around finally after a few bad years. it seems that the Pirates are starting to return to prominence in the National League Central. At number 2, Washington Nationals will select Paul Skeens, a right-handed pitcher from Louisiana State. He's considered the top pitching prospect in the draft. And with the Nationals picking number 2, the Nationals load of outfield prospects and need pitching. So what would they do? The Pirates pass on Cruz. Most people in the industry think Washington will still take Skeens, whose strikeout rate is just behind Ryan Wagner's all-time NCAA Division I record of 16.8 in 2003. At number 3, the Detroit Tigers will take outfielder from Florida, Wyatt Langford. If the Pirates do a discount deal and the Nationals take Skeens, the Tigers could get Cruz. More likely, they wind up with Langford, who's hitting .398 entering the NCAA tournament play. If the two college outfielders are off the board, it probably comes down to Skeens versus Jenkins, who's at number 3. If they had to have a college bat in that scenario, it might be Virginia catcher Kyle Teal. So there is a possibility Langford gets taken in the top 2. That's a possibility. At number 4, again, I will have a live stream for the draft on July 9th, and we're going to talk about this. Probably start around 7 o'clock, the draft, and we'll end it at 11 o'clock. New York Mets, if you're a New York Mets fan, the Mets don't have the first pick until the 32nd. They forfeit it through the competitive tax because they spent so much money this past year. They got taxed and they lost their first round pick. They will pick number 32. At number 4, the first place Texas Rangers, who actually have a very good farm system with guys like Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. I would mention this about Kumar Rocker, which I think is kind of amusing. He will be known for a lot of things, but obviously he's known to be a pitcher that ruined 2 teams' drafts 2 years in a row. In 2021, the New York Mets selected him to be the number 1 pick, and they were going to use a certain amount of money to sign him because he was a high and well-known pitcher in college. He was well-known throughout baseball. And he was considered to be a guy that was going to go top 5. But because of the questions about his injury situation, where he might have had an injury to his arm, that's why he went as low as he did to the New York Mets. And the Mets selected him, and they were going to sign him. But once they had a chance to look at his x-rays and a little bit of his medical history with the arm, the Mets did not sign him. And in fact, they didn't even offer him a contract. Now, what that did, because they didn't sign him, they were allocated money on the front end of their draft. They were locked in. They had to sign him to a high rate. And then, unfortunately, they allocated less money after that pick. So that meant that they had a lesser draft because of that. In 2022, the Texas Rangers selected Kumar Rocker with their first round pick. And what was interesting about that, twofold. In the offseason, this offseason before he got drafted, he had pitched for an independent team, and then he had to get surgery on his arm. So at that point, he wasn't drafted. He already had an arm issue. Now, he gets drafted by the Rangers. This did 2 things. 1, now that he's injured, it ruins their draft from last year. And 2, the New York Mets drafted after the Rangers last season. And because of Rocker getting selected by the Rangers, it was like a domino effect from who was going to go to the New York Mets. And when the Mets got to the 11th pick, which was a compensation pick for not signing Kumar Rocker, the Mets selected Kevin Parada, who was the big catcher in last year's draft. And he's considered to be the Mets current top prospect in Major League Baseball for themselves and for their team. And he has a chance to be getting really, really good. And going through these lists very quickly. But they will pick in the 4th round. The Rangers will pick in the 4th pick Walker Jenkins, outfielder from South Brunswick High School in Southport, North Carolina. This is linked for his floor, and Jenkins likely hoping home if the first three choices play out as projected above. At number 5, Max Clark, an outfielder from Franklin High School in Indiana. The Twins jumped from number 13 to number 5 in the inaugural draft lottery, and the decision should be fairly easy. Just take whoever remains among the top tier players, but there are several clubs who believe Minnesota could prefer a college bat like Teal or Mississippi shortstop Jacob Gonzalez to Jenkins or Clark. There's also some thought that the Twins are the ceiling for Noble Meyer, the best high school arm. Now, before we continue, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut too. At number 6, the Oakland Athletics will select Kyle Teal, a catcher from Virginia. Barring a top 5 talent getting to number 6, the A's are focused on college bats and arms. At number 7, now if you've been following the Reds, they've been calling up young players. They call up Ellie De La Cruz, and they've been playing him at third base, and first 2 games, he's been very impressive. I want to see how he is in a month from now. He's got tremendous power and one of the fastest players in the game. He's a big kid, too. And, of course, they have a former number 1 pick overall from the 2020 draft, I believe, and that's Hunter Green. They signed him to a long-term deal. And he's getting there. He needs to do a better job of breaking stuff and get a handle on his control. Once he does those things, he should be in great shape. But the Reds will select Rhett Lauder, a right-handed pitcher from Wake Forest. The Reds are the last team with a glimmer of hope of landing one of the Fab Five, but the chances of that happening are minuscule. They've been associated with every demographic: college hitters and pitchers, high school bats and arms. So they've actually done a good job with the draft. At number 8, the Kansas City Royals will select Noble Meyer, right-handed pitcher from Jesuit High School in Portland, Oregon. I'll tell you, Oregon has a good baseball program, even with the high school players. Meyer would give Jesuit High School the top prep pitcher taken in 2 of the last 4 drafts, following Mick Abel going 15 to the Phillies in 2020. Other possibilities include Teal, Lauder, Gonzalez, and Wilson from the college ranks, and Namala, Mitchell, and third baseman Aiden Miller from the high school class. At number 9, Chase Dolander, who was considered to be the top pitching prospect coming into this year. But he has sort of, he hasn't really pitched all that great. And he's been inconsistent. And he's a right-handed pitcher from Tennessee. This is the Tennessee Volunteers. And they're saying that the Rockies are going to take him at number 9. So I'll be interested to see, he might fall even further. That's a possibility. At number 10, the Marlins with Arias hitting 400 will select the shortstop Arjun Namala, a shortstop from Strawberry Crest High School in Dover, Florida. As many as 9 high school shortstops could go in the first round, and the Marlins could kick off that trend with Namala or Colin Hawk. They're also kicking the tires on college shortstops Wilson and Gonzalez, as well as Meyer and Miller at number 10. At number 11, Jacob Gonzalez, a shortstop in Mississippi. After the Angels expedited Zach Neto from the 22 draft to the big leagues, they could opt for another college position player, such as Gonzalez, Wilson, or Bradford. The Diamondbacks at number 12, the first place Diamondbacks, the first place Arizona Diamondbacks, will select shortstop Colin Hawk from Parkview High School in Lilburn, Georgia. There are no certainties this deep in the first round this far in advance, but Hawk to the D-backs gets mentioned an awful lot. Namala and Miller, 2 prep hitters in play, and some of the collegians projected above could be attractive if they get to number 12. At number 13, Aiden Miller, a third baseman from Mitchell High School in Newport Richey, Florida. The Cubs feel like the floor for Teal and Lauder, who probably won't last too much longer. Miller missed much of the spring with a broken hamate, but was the top hitter on the high school showcase circuit last summer. Also keep an eye on Hawk, Bradford, Maryland shortstop Matt Shaw, with some Ian Happ parallels, and Florida Atlantic first baseman Nolan Shinel. So if you like this kind of stuff, I'm going to keep doing this stuff for the next few weeks as we get closer to the draft. And maybe possibly I'll give you updates on different players that have signed as well, because they have to sign these players within a month, or they sort of lose them. At number 14, the Red Sox will select catcher Blake Mitchell from Sinton High School in Texas. The Red Sox have taken high school bats of each of their last 4 first-round picks and could go that route again with Hawk, Miller, Mitchell, or shortstop Colt Emerson. What a great name. Is that a great name for an athlete? That's a great name for like a running back or a quarterback. Colt Emerson. Emerson takes the ball. Colt Emerson steps back into the pocket. What a great name. Bradford, the short, could also sway Boston to the college side. At number 15, shortstop from Grand Canyon, Jacob Wilson. This is probably too low for Wilson, who's the best contact hitter in the draft, and could go as high as number 6. There are conflicting reports that the White Sox are heavy on prep hitters versus going the safer college route. At number 16, the Giants, they will select Enrique Bradford, an outfielder from Vanderbilt. And this might be the low end for Bradford, who stands out with his speed and defense, but comes with questions about his offensive impact. Other names tied to the Giants include Miller, short high school first baseman, right-hander, Bryce Eldridge. I would mention this about players in the first round that are looked upon as speed guys and defense guys. You got to be very careful if there's questions about his offense. You don't want to waste money, and you don't want to waste a pick on a player that cannot hit. You don't want to have to do that. You don't want to do that. I've seen that a few times over the years with the New York Mets, that they've done that a couple of times in the last 20 years, where they selected players that were considered good defensive players, fast players, but couldn't hit, and they show that in the major leagues. Now, he is from Vanderbilt, so you have a pretty good idea of what kind of player he's going to be. He's not going to be as big of a project as you would get with a high school player. But let the buyer beware with a player that's field and speed and no offense ability. At number 17, the Baltimore Orioles have had the best farm system in Major League Baseball. And as you know, they have the big catcher there behind the plate and down in Maryland, and Adley Bruchman. He's just great. And he's a big reason why they have turned around that franchise. And the Orioles are going to select in this draft Hurston Waltrip, a right-hander from Florida. The Orioles need mound help, and Waltrip is the last definite first-round pitcher offering premium stuff, but also spotty strike throwing. They've also had a lot of success drafting hitters and get mentioned with Miller, Mitchell, Eldridge, and Shanel. At number 18, the Brewers will select shortstop Matt Shaw from Maryland. Shaw boasted his stop by winning Cape Cod League MVPs last summer and would stretch the Brewers' streak of taking college bats in the first round to 4 straight drafts. Shanel, Stanford shortstop Tommy Troy, Miami third baseman Yohandy Morales, and Texas Christian third baseman Braden Taylor would do the same. The Tampa Bay Rays will select Bryce Eldridge, a first baseman, right-handed pitcher from Madison High School, Vienna, Virginia. The Rays' affinity for high school hitters in the first round could lead them to Miller. Eldridge, or one of the several shortstops we're going to project going in the 20s. Now, here's the thing about the Rays. The Rays will bring you into their organization, and the second you show any kind of failure as a player, goodbye, skadoosh, you're out of here. They'll make a big trade, make a big deal. Oh, we traded this great player, and he turns out to have absolutely. You got to be very careful with the Rays. They're sneaky. Very, very sneaky. That's for damn sure. At number 20, the Toronto Blue Jays will select Tommy Troy, shortstop from Stanford. The Blue Jays get associated with college performers like Shore, Troy, and Shanel. They're also one of the teams more willing to pop a prep pitcher such as Thomas White, Charlie Soto, or Travis Sakura. At number 21, from the last place, St. Louis Cardinals in the National League Central, they will select number 21, Nolan Shano, a first baseman outfielder from Florida Atlantic. Shano's had the best statistical season in the college class as he tops NCAA Division I in hitting and on-base percentage, OPS, and walks, and also has nearly 3 times as many extra base hits and strikeouts. Taylor and Waltrip could be alternatives. At number 22, from the Mariners. Now, the Mariners have actually done a good job with their position players. They're going to take another position player from their for their farm system. They will select Brady Taylor, third baseman, Texas Christian. The Mariners will make their second and third round picks before any other club get their second, giving them a much larger bonus pool than usual for a team selected at 22. They could try to float someone with a high price tag down there, though it's too early to know. We'll see. Now, before we continue, I would expect and hope that you subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2 and let me know what you think about this video. I really enjoy talking about the draft and talking about young players and talking about the farm systems. So hopefully you like hearing this as well. And the Guardians will select probably the best name in the first round of the draft, Colt Emerson, shortstop, third baseman from Glen High School, New Concord, Ohio. And he's an Ohio kid, too. Emerson would be the first home state product the Guardians take in the first round since number 2 choice, Mark Lewis, in 1988. They could also be in play for other high school bats such as Eldridge and Kevin McGonigal. Another great name. And may represent the floor with Waltrip. At number 24, the Atlanta Braves will select Kevin McGonigal. Great name. Shortstop, second baseman from Monsignor Bonnier High School in Drexel Hill, PA. Braves will love a shot at Eldridge, but likely have to look at other prep position players such as Emerson, McGonigal, and fellow shortstops Martin, George Lombard Jr., and Sammy Stafora. At number 25, that's the same kind of issue with the Giants. They will select Dylan Head, an outfielder from Homewood Floresmoor High School. It's going to get heavy on high schools late in the first round, and the Padres are connected to just about every prepster mentioned in the back half of this projected first round. Teams view Head as the high school version of Bradford, with some teams preferring the prepster because they think he'll provide more impact at the plate. It wouldn't be shocking if Head crept into the top half of the first round. Again, you got to be careful with these kids that can't hit. They can't hit them at the high school level and have not much of an impact in the college level. Stay away from them. And number 26. I mean, I'm not saying they're not draftable, but I don't know if you draft them number 1. The Yankees will draft George Lombard Jr., shortstop, third baseman from Gulliver Prep in Pinecrest, Florida. High school shortstops are the best bet for the Yankees, including Emerson, McGonigal, Lombard, and Stafora. A suburban New York City product, Stafora exudes some Anthony Volpe vibes. Ooh, we don't want to see that. Volpe he's been a little underwhelming here. And number 27, the Phillies will take Charlie Soto, a right-handed pitcher from Reborn Christian Academy from Kissimmee, Florida. All things equal, the Phillies may prefer a pitcher that could lead them to Soto, who has emerged the second-best prep arm available behind only Meyer. At number 28, world champion Houston Nationals will select Walker Martin, the shortstop from Eaton High School in Colorado. The Nationals get mentioned with a variety of college bat performers and high school prep shortstops, which encompasses almost every pick we projected in the 20s. Also, a star quarterback who figures to get better as he focuses on baseball. Martin is riding recent helium into the first round. Now, for this mock draft, they don't mention number 29 and 30 and 31. So we skip now to number 32, and that's the New York Mets. The Mets, I believe, have 7 picks in the first 5 rounds, I believe, or the first 7 rounds, because a lot of compensation for losing Chris Bassett and losing Jacob deGrom to the Rangers, and of course the Blue Jays with Bassett. So the Mets do have a lot of draft picks. So the Mets have to do a very good job now of drafting players. I will say this because this is not a very deep high school. It's not a very deep pitchers draft. Now the New York Mets need a lot of pitching in this organization, but for the first pick that they get in this draft, do not select the pitcher. In my view, select a position player. Now, for this mock draft, they said that the Mets could opt for a slugging Atlantic Coast Conference third baseman, Yoandy Morales, a third baseman from Miami, or Wake Forest Brock Wilken. Now, we will keep you up to date on the Mets if you're a Met fan, or I will keep an update for you. The Dodgers will pick 36, and they will select Thomas White, left-handed pitcher from Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. White has first-round upside and is the best left-handed pitcher available, but he lacks consistency and hurt his cause by pitching poorly in front of a large crowd of scouts in late May. Other possibilities include Wilkin, Texas right-hander Tanner Witt, and another prep lefty, Alex Clemeny. So this is a little different kind of, especially the back end of this draft, a very different kind of view. But again, if you're a Mets fan, I will cover who the Mets draft, and hopefully we'll get this pick at the end of the night on draft night. But I will let you know who they pick on this channel, of course, on the other channel, on the big channel. So again, we will have other StreamYards where I discuss who gets drafted in the first round, who gets drafted with the New York Mets. We'll find out where Dylan Cruz goes, find out where Paul Skeens goes, Wyatt Langford, Colt Emerson, what a great name, Kevin McGonigal, and all the rest. So I want to thank you all for coming by. Please subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.